God, as great as Adobe products are, their transcription sucks. This is Hard Parking, brought to you by Right Honda and Right Toyota out of Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm your host, Jhae Pfenning, recording from my home studio in Gilbert, Arizona. I try to be loud with that. I try to say it clearly and concisely. I guess it's not concise because it is kind of long-winded. For some reason, Adobe transcription continues to screw up the transcript of these episodes, and I have to go in and correct not only my name, but Right Honda, Right Toyota, and it gets a little annoying. Coming up on today's show, my friend Phil Cow. In 2021, Phil suffered a stroke, and he's only in his 30s. And that was a very scary time, and it took him a long time to, go through speech therapy. I think he lost some of his memory, but he's been working on that. And when the time was right, I said, you know what? One day you should come over to Hard Parking, and we should talk about it, because I care about him. And for anybody who's seen somebody go through a stroke, you kind of think about old people or somebody who might be physically out of shape, but it's going to surprise you, Phil's stroke story. He also goes by the name of Phat, which is his actual name, P-H-A-T, Phat. So I'll refer to him as Phil. I might refer to him as Phat, but that's coming up, and this is going to be one of those type of episodes where you're going to love this podcast, and hopefully it's your first time listening or watching because you're going to be hooked on it. And if you're a return listener or viewer, then you already know sometimes we can go to these sweet places and get you right in the feels. A little bit of car news before we get to that part. Dodge has confirmed they do have a 700 plus horsepower Challenger coming out. I know that a lot of the Dodge people were probably a little upset when they canceled the Hellcat and canceled doing all that kind of stuff, but you knew it would be back. That train's never late. Those cars, they sold so many of them. They are incredibly badass. I've never driven one. I've seen a lot because everyone seems to have one. So much power, but that has been confirmed. Dodge is also working on a vehicle called the Copperhead SRT. I don't know if you've seen that. I'll talk about it a little bit here. That is a badass looking car. I don't know if whatever is online is the real car, if it's just an AI render of the car, but it looks pretty cool. If it does come out, it's not going to be slammed like that. That'd be really weird for Dodge to slam a car like that. Not even the Viper was this low. But according to them, it's going to be so this article is from autoblog.com by Sebastian Cenizo. I'm not even going to try to pronounce this person's name. The Copperhead will be a hyper muscle car, not a sports car. Some of the key points about the Copperhead is it won't compete with the C8 Corvette or mimic the Viper. The Copperhead may have a V8, but more clues will come ahead of roadkill nights in August. So it sounds like there's still a lot to be discovered with this vehicle. But, Stellantis lost like shit ton of money. And so did every other manufacturer. We all know Honda ate the big one, their biggest one, I think, in their history. And Stellantis, for all intents and purposes, felt like they were kind of left for dead. But no, they're coming back, and they're coming back strong. They've announced a bunch of new models, and I hope that this is the bounce back. Like every other manufacturer, they got their head out of their ass and decided that EV is not now. It might be for the future, but it's time to get back to internal combustion and really well improved hybrids. And so whether it's this the new Hellcat, which honestly I don't really care about, or this Copperhead SRT, this thing looks sick. And hopefully it's the one. It's going to be their flagship, obviously. And it may not be designed to mimic the Viper, but for all intents and purposes, that's exactly what it is. It's their badass car, a la the Viper, the hypercar. And so, can't wait to see what happens with that. Coming up after this word from Arcus Foundry Sparkforge, Phat Phil Cow. If you run a business and you're tired of juggling tools, chasing logins, and constantly feeling like the tech side of things is heavier than it should be, this might hit close to home. That tech fatigue usually shows up as an outdated website, reviews slipping through the cracks, missed calls when you're busy, or social media that's always on the back burner. Most business owners know something's off, but fixing it feels like a bigger project than they have time for. SparkForge exists to take that weight off. It handles the tech behind the scenes, helps clean up how your business shows up online, makes sure calls and messages don't get mixed, keeps reviews from slipping through the cracks, and wrangles social marketing so you don't disappear for weeks. If you're curious, there's a short discovery session, and it comes with 90 days free to actually see if it makes things easier. No pitch, no pressure, just a real conversation about what's working, what's broken, and what you can simplify. So head over to getsparkforge.ai/hardparking to get started. Phat. Phil.
Yeah, Phat Phil, yeah.
Phat Cow. I mean, people know you as Phat. I know you as Phil in pre-recording discussion. That just kind of helps date. But welcome to Hard Parking.
All right. Thanks, Jay.
Yeah, somewhere around 2021, maybe a little, before that, you had a stroke.
Yeah, 2021 I had
2021, okay. Yeah. And you're doing a lot of stuff now I watched you do an interview with a guy named Ali, Hope for Stroke Survivors.
Yeah, that's
and I
right,
wanted you to come on and kind of talk about everything you've kind of gone through, and then some of the things that people like me who, when I think of somebody who had a stroke, it seems like it's something immediate, right? I mean, it's immediate, but it's like, okay, well, that person's having a stroke and, either they're going to make their way back or they're not. But there's a lot of little things, I think, that I wouldn't say ignorant to, but just not being educated on, some of the things that happen to people, and then some of the positive outcomes, right? Because it's hope. Because Ali said he was told that he would never talk again, and I just watched a 30-minute interview with you guys having a conversation.
Yeah,
and I threw a lot at you.
That's all right. Yeah,
but just start from wherever you'd like to start.
Yeah, as far as what you said, I relate to it 100%. I think we all have our assumptions about stroke. Some misconceptions. Maybe it just happens to older people. For me, I thought it was your life is over. No one in my family actually had a stroke before, and, it was new to me. Well, yeah, I've learned a lot. Since 2021, it's been, actually next month is 5 years, and, I've learned a lot through this time. But yeah, I think having just the misconceptions, I'm learning that there is life after stroke. I am still working on things, and I feel like, in a way, in life, you're always working on things, and, I don't know when I'll stop. I don't know if you can really stop. But I've learned a lot, and, I think it's made me better.
Do you remember what led up to it? Like, for you, you're young.
Yeah.
Like, how old are you now?
I'm 42 now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you look like you're like 20. But even 42, that puts you in your mid-30s.
Yeah, when I was 36 at the time when I had it, and I didn't have any pre-existing conditions or family history, which those tend to, get people to have strokes. In my situation, I didn't, and they couldn't actually figure out how I had the stroke either.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's, in a way, it's scary, right? Because it's kind of better to know how exactly you had it so you can avoid it, or, just knowing the cause.
No calcium buildup, nothing?
Yeah, nothing.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so
it's still a mystery or no?
It's still a mystery. And in ways, we did put some energy towards that, and I gave up on that. Because you can run a bunch of tests, you can do different things to find a cause. In my situation, it wasn't apparent. And also, I found out about 40% of people, they don't know how they had a stroke. Yeah, so I'm one of those.
Yeah. Do you remember anything?
I do.
Is that
remember.
unusual to remember, or is it like a certain percentage of people just don't remember that either?
Yeah, that I'm not clear. I know I remember everything leading up until the point where I had the stroke and I got taken in the ambulance. And there were things that happened, and I was kind of in denial. I do remember at the peak, I had vision problems, and I was throwing up, and the last thing was my balance issues. It was kind of leading up, like, days, And
so there were signs that you didn't know what the signs were.
Yeah, there were little signs, and I was like, oh, maybe it's food poisoning.
Right.
Because the big one was my balance. I had a hard time walking. I felt dizzy.
You didn't go to the doctor or anything, or you did, and they were like...
Yeah, I didn't even go to the doctor. Actually, I was with my girlfriend, and she's like, let's go to the doctor. And I was like, it's okay. It's just food poisoning. I'll probably sleep it off, yeah. So I tried to sleep it off.
Okay, what restaurant did you blame it on?
I blamed it on this Vietnamese restaurant. Yeah, I don't want to put names out there yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was food poisoning, and I'm like, let me sleep it off. And I'm glad that, she called when she did, because I was telling her, I was kind of being like, hey, you better not call. And she listened for a day or so, and she noticed I was kind of out of it, as the days went on. So then, good thing she called, because I wasn't, at that point, I didn't remember anything after that.
Yeah, so it's I think about it as you talk, and what you just said a couple minutes ago, like even as you'd gone in when you first started having issues, like what would they have found?
Yeah, I hear a lot of times, which happens, because at the time I was 36, and sometimes you go in and people, they don't take it that seriously, because one, they might look at you, and just like you're younger, they're like, oh, you're not having a stroke.
Sure.
And that does happen a lot. They turn down people, and in my situation, that could have been the case. And at the same time, I'm not sure.
Yeah, because none of the signs, unless your body's going through something as you're doing that, and not just something you can't see, like this will get you down for an echocardiogram or something like that. But I don't think they would. I'm not a medical professional or anything, but I do work in radiology IT since 2008.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so we do a lot of stuff by proxy with cardiology, and it's just, I always kind of listen to that stuff. I'm like, even if they would have taken you in, I mean, who knows, right?
Yeah, you're right. Who knows? I mean, I would have thought that.
I remember when that happened, because so you went to California with us at least once. And I'll never forget, because that was when I first was experimenting with the One Auto Movement brand. And so everybody had like these sample shirts on, and there's a famous between our group clip of Yoshi, having someone park. And so even to this day, Eric and Mike, we all say, and even Yoshi, more angle. There's like this video where he's like, more angle.
Yeah.
And then what I remember most about you is you were so outgoing and accommodating, because you're just as accommodating now as you've ever been. And that's awesome, But you're the guy who we'd walk in there and you'd go up to people and be like, hey, let's take a picture. It's like, oh, that's so then when this happened, we're like, Phil. And so, we reached out. But at that day changed Eric forever as well, and I noticed that he stopped being as public with social media, and he did what people should do. Everything turned inward to the family structure.
Yeah.
And so that changed him and everybody, involved with that. And we were kind of helpless, because we could just kind of root from the sideline,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
completely makes sense.
Yeah. And then I think what did you go through some memory, like recovery and stuff like that? Like kind of talk about your road back to kind of being out in the social circles, because it was a while.
Yeah, definitely going through something like that is very traumatic, right? And it affects you not just physically, but mentally and different things. Thanks for saying that. I do feel like, I mean, my memory is not the best in the past, but I'm glad that I do remember things. And
you've even joked about it.
That was fun. Yeah, that was fun when we went to California together. I always remember that. But yeah, when that happened, I think with stroke sometimes, or something that happens that is traumatic, is it not only affects the person, but also the people around him. And Eric, he did step up in a lot of ways. And, I do appreciate everyone just stepping up, and even people from the sidelines, just like you do what you can, right? But yeah, it did teach us all a lot, I think. I think people's true selves come out, and you see how different people respond. We all take it differently. And for me, I think having a stroke at first, yeah, we were all in shock, right? I mean, for myself, I woke up. It was like, it's pretty crazy because you wake up and all of a sudden you're like, what the hell happened, you know? For me, I couldn't walk, I couldn't talk. You know, there was a lot of different disabilities I was going through, and definitely I couldn't go to work. You know, so then all of a sudden you just learn, because I never really had any health issues.
Right.
And you just start learning about a different side, you know, that you're not familiar with. And I was starting to get exposed to like therapies. I didn't know all these therapies existed. And, you know, for you to be in like kind of like the medical or, you know, whatever field, you start having a lot of respect for people who do what they do. And so I just started learning about different types of therapies, how to recover. And it was all new to me. And I was like, oh, okay. So I started realizing that, hey, you can start recovering. And I will always remember this, but there was a lady that was right next to me in the hospital, and she had a stroke, but I guess she had been there for like so long, and she stopped recovering. And so I remember that because I was like, in my head, I wasn't fully there because so much had gone on. So you're like, yeah, it's like overwhelming. And a part of you can't comprehend everything, but I remember thinking, okay, maybe I can't recover. You know, I didn't hear it from anybody really, but I knew I could just tell what they were thinking, right? Because at that time I had so many issues going on. And so, yeah, it just gets you by surprise. And I just, you know, went with what the therapist told me to do, and I would do it, and I would see improvements. So yeah, I just kept on doing it, and it kind of went from there until the first thing was I just focused on getting out of the hospital. I wanted to get out of there. It took me about, I think, a couple months. But yeah.
And it's scary for everybody else. To your point, it's not just you; it's everyone around you because nobody knows, right? No one knows
Yeah.
really what to expect, and then all we know is the doom of stroke and stroke survivors. And you said the woman next to you stopped recovering. Did she get to a point and just not progress, or did she get to a point and start going the opposite direction? Do you remember
As
that?
far as what I
Yeah.
know, I think she just stopped recovering, but she had been there for years. And I think people kind of gave up hope for her, and she just lived there. And so in my situation, I remember I was working hard to improve until I got to a certain point where I can leave, but she was still there. And I didn't like go visit her or anything. You know, I could just tell she was like next door to me. And so I just knew that not everyone is able to recover.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's all I could comprehend, I think, at that time. But at that time, I was so focused on myself that I was just trying to get out of there. And, you know, it worked. In a way, when I graduated, it was cool because I could go home. And I did know that not everyone graduated. I could tell that some people kind of felt, I guess, maybe resentment that, like, okay, I'm getting out of there. And there's some people that are stuck there.
So it sounds like there's a step program in order to be able to get out. And what do you have to show that you can be not dependent, you can function? Like, what is that? Because you just opened up a whole new thing for me.
Oh, yeah, yeah. You know, they do track your progress that you're making, the gains. And depending on what type of program it is, they have different therapies, like speech therapy is one, because I couldn't talk at that time. And so they help you kind of learn how to talk and different things. And then there's the physical. So they'll like monitor like how many steps you can take, how far you can go. They'll do different exercises for you to build up till they feel like you're safe enough, you know, to go home. And I think at that time I had graduated to like a walker from a wheelchair. And so, you know, they felt like I was good enough to go home.
How long was that? Do you remember approximately?
It was about
weeks, months?
2 months.
2 months?
Yeah, I think it was about 2 months. But I think, you know, actually I forgot.
What's the most frustrated you think you were during that time?
Oh,
You had to have been frustrated,
yeah, I was.
especially having to learn with the speech therapy.
Yeah, you know, in a way, I was frustrated. But I think going through the brain surgery I couldn't fully comprehend it. It's really hard to explain. I just knew I was frustrated. I remember taking things out on my nurse, even just showing like emotions and stuff. And actually, we got in an argument. Yeah, that's the first thing I remember because I was just annoyed. So there were things that I couldn't fully comprehend, and that was one of them, I think.
What did the surgery do?
The surgery, what they did was, because there's two types of stroke. It's
Okay.
ischemic and hemorrhagic. Ischemic is when like one of your arteries is clogged, and the hemorrhagic is when something bursts.
Right.
And
Hemorrhage.
I had a hemorrhage.
Oh.
Yeah. And so with the surgery, what happened was I had complications. And that's what made it worse is that after the hemorrhage, they repaired it. They were able to repair it. And then I had internal bleeding and swelling. And so they had to do a second surgery. And so that's what they did with the surgeries. Yeah.
Scary, dude.
Yeah. They actually had to remove part of my brain. So that's why a lot of people didn't think I would recover.
The worst part.
Yeah. If I would survive, yeah.
Man, that's wild. What about getting back out on the scene?
Oh, yeah, that definitely took time.
Were you worried about it, or you were just kind of excited to kind of get out and do things?
Yeah, I was at that time. I felt like I was just focused on the next step, which in a way it worked to my advantage. And I think that's kind of a practice that I've been working on, is kind of focusing on the path ahead in a way. And there's
Yeah.
a lot of quotes and stuff out there, just focus on the path ahead, or the journey begins with the first step or something like that. And I kind of practice that a lot.
What about people who came up to you where you were like, oh, cool, good to see you, but I don't know who you are? Or, because I remember the first time I saw you, it's like, Phil, what's up, Phil? And you're kind of like, hey. And I'm thinking, God, I know he's been through a lot. I wonder if he just doesn't really remember me. Like some of those relationships, were they easier to put back together than others?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense what you're saying. I think depending on the phase I was at,
Right.
it was different.
It was a while ago, to be fair.
Yeah, it was. But each stage was different. I think coming home was like one of the hardest things because you come home and that's when it really hits.
Yeah.
You can't do the same things. I couldn't drive, couldn't work. And so being at the hospital is actually easier because you have somebody there. And then now it's kind of like you're on your own. You got to figure it out. But definitely, I think when I saw you, I was at a better point.
Sure.
So it's like, hey, what's up, Jay? It's nice to see you, right? I feel like it gives you a different lens on things. Just being able to get to that point, I can kind of get into the community again. So yeah, I think it takes time though. You got to build up. Yeah.
Did you? I'll say this for me: when I see you, it's like a treat every time. Like I feel really good that you're there, And any time that I see friends of mine that have gone through anything, I'm grateful for that opportunity to still be a part of their life, because there's so much going on, and there's so few people that make it back. I mean, you talked about maybe the sense of possibly a little resentment from making it out of the program. That means a lot of people just don't make it out of the program. Or like, I wish that maybe no matter how hard you want to do it, maybe your body and your mind just doesn't let you do it. But for you did it. And then now you're doing the Hope for Stroke Survivors. And, what have you been doing to kind of help those that were in the position of the lady next door, and or yourself, and then when it comes to the two different types of stroke, what does that look like for people?
Yeah, I feel the same way about you too. Like when I see you, it's like, hey, what's up, Jay? Yeah, it feels nice to see you. But I think it depends on everybody too. You connect with different people more than others. And I think we all have different relationships, right? But for me, that's why I'm so passionate about it, because in the beginning, after having a stroke, I remember I wasn't sure the possibilities, if you could recover. And to me, the traditional system out there is kind of limited. And especially back then. And so that's why for me, I figured things out on my own. And in ways, of course, I got help from professionals.
Right.
But then after that, I had to figure things out on my own, because if I would have fully listened to them, I wouldn't be where I'm at. And now that's why I'm passionate about it. And I do want to share it with people to let them know that, hey, you might reach a stopping point, but there's still room for improvement. Because, I had to do that on my own.
Well, similar to Ali, were you told anything different than what you've become?
I don't remember if anyone ever said, hey, he's not going to recover.
Yeah.
Like, no one said that to my face. And so that's the benefit. Yeah. But I felt like it was kind of not clear. That's what I felt like. People were like, oh, he's pretty much messed up. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we believe in the medical professionals, but there's still people with opinions based on hopefully data, so maybe, maybe they're looking at them like, well, based on statistics, this, but, I think if we were to do everything exactly the way they said all the time, like, who knows, right? So like people like him push through, and again, you just watched a 30-minute interview of you guys having a conversation. And then even with you, like, no one really knew, right? But I mean, you're here, you're not supposed to drive, or you can drive now, or at least Tesla can bring you over here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the powers of technology.
That helped
I guess.
A lot. Yeah, technology is killer.
What do you think's been your biggest help to get to where you are now? Just with anything out there, other than your belief in yourself.
Yeah, definitely learning from the professionals. And I think the biggest thing is pairing it with advocating for yourself too. I think those two together, is big. The internet is powerful nowadays too. We have different technologies, you say, and it can really, you can leverage that. It just depends. There's so much information out there, and, it's like, okay, how do you want to use it, right? And I was starting to use that information out there from the internet to find like different therapists and people that were sharing groundbreaking things. So that way it helped me to elevate my recovery.
And it's even better now. I mean, even now in 2026 than it was in 5, 4, 3, especially, in 2022 and 21, there's just so many tools. So what would you tell people to do? Like, let's say that someone watching or viewing either has a stroke or has someone in their family with a stroke. And of course, we know you don't have to be old to have one,
Yeah. I mean, it does happen more to old people, which, makes sense.
Right.
What I would say is, just a lot of it does come down to how you think and what you believe too. Because I think, if you think you can or think you can't, then you are right. So yeah.
You still like cars, man?
Yeah, I
mean,
like
you're
cars,
at the last era events, but are you there for the cars or just to support the family, or a little bit of both?
I think it's a little bit of both. Yeah, it's definitely to support Eric, my brother, family, and also a part of it. I think of a lot of things as therapy. That is what helps me a lot too, because there's a lot of details that I do want to go to those events, and just like talking to people, I think, it's different when you're talking to different people. That helps me to improve. And there's different things. I think also to spread awareness when I can. There's a lot of different reasons. But I like cars still. I love cars. I don't get down to the details, but I love cars. They're beautiful. Yeah, things. I respect also the invention of cars and how they're built and things like that.
What do you like?
I like, what? I like everything, man.
I know, but it's such an easy answer, right? If I were to hand you the keys to something right now, what would it be? It doesn't have to be practical. It doesn't have to make sense.
Oh, it doesn't. I like the McLaren.
One of the McLarens?
Yeah, one of them. I don't even know what it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of them.
There's a couple of them that are really nice, but I don't even think I can answer that question if someone were to ask that.
Oh, okay.
It's just so hard on the spot, right? But that just means you really like everything.
Yeah, I do. I mean, so many cars. I'm just like, wow, I'm just like drooling over them. Yeah.
Strange question for you.
What's going on? Yeah.
Because, you know, did going through that experience change any of your core likes and dislikes? For example, you used to love pho. You know, now you can't stand the smell of pho. Like, does it do any of that?
Yeah.
Even if not to you, but yeah, okay. Well, like, what are
Big
some things
time.
that are different from today's Phat to yesterday's Phil?
If we're talking about food, I used to like fish sauce. Now I don't like fish sauce anymore. And you know, like in Vietnamese culture,
It's in
fish
everything.
sauce is everything. Yeah.
Yeah,
But I think it changes your taste, you know, your body digests things differently. And also, I think a lot of things have changed what I prioritize.
sure.
Yeah, I think health is a big one for sure, right? Because, you know, you can be worried about so many things, but I remember when I had a stroke, I was only worried about one thing, just to get healthier. And yeah, it does change a lot of things. I think it really impacts you, and especially coming back. You know, now that I've tried to transition myself into society again, then I've learned to appreciate that more too. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's those things that just kind of changes your perspective on all sorts of stuff. Do you ever just kind of sit back and
Anytime.
and say those people have no idea
Yeah,
whether
definitely.
their fries are crunchy or soggy? That doesn't even matter, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes I hear, especially nowadays, just coming back, a lot has changed,
Yeah,
and I think things are a lot faster now. So in my situation, I remember starting to drive again, and I get people driving by, flipping me off, like, get the fuck out of the way, you know?
yeah.
But yeah,
Just a slow
sometimes.
Asian driver, man.
Yeah,
Just
slow
another
Asian.
one, right?
Yeah. Another bad Asian driver. Yeah, I hear that all the time, and sometimes people complain, and yeah, definitely, yeah.
It's just their
If they only
perspective,
knew, yeah.
right? You know, everything can be taken away, or the threat of it can be taken away. You know, we have to decide what's really important, what really matters, right? Not
Yeah.
everything matters as much as you think it does, you know. And then I think you look up and maybe you've wasted too much time having an opinion on this or having an opinion on that, and not focusing on what's in front of you, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's a good one. Sometimes you don't know until you actually go through it.
Right.
And in a way, we all know, right? Oh, I shouldn't complain too much. I should be grateful. And it just does something to you when something happens, too.
So is Hope for Stroke Survivors, is
Hmm.
that like a charity that you've put together or you're just a part of? And what else is out there for people to get more education and get more hope on their recovery that you know of?
In my experience, especially in the beginning, I didn't know where to find the resources. And I'll elaborate on the story is I created this
Please
page,
do, yeah.
a separate page. Yeah, I created it, and it was called Hope for Stroke Survivor without an S. And I just started collecting data. A part of me, I just wanted to consume stroke-related content and also things that were fun. And so I built it for myself. And also I like recovery comeback stories because that motivated me. And so I actually, at that time, I wasn't sure if I could work again. And so I hired this coach. And she said, why don't you make that public? So I made it public. And all of a sudden, people started gravitating towards it. And then I just started doing it and sharing like recovery tips. Because at that time, I couldn't find a lot of information out there. And so then as it started growing, I changed it to Hope for Stroke Survivors with an S. And then my girlfriend just made me some random logo. And then it just started growing after that. And I just continued with it. And now it's at this point.
Good for you. Good for everybody, right? Because if you can't find much information on it, that means other people can't either. And so you become kind of that hub and that uniting point for other people out there looking for hope, trying to get through just having a stroke or a family member or a good friend of theirs. So yeah, good for your
Yeah.
coach.
Hey,
Good for
thanks.
your lady.
Yeah,
and good
no,
for
I
you
appreciate
too.
that.
Teamwork, right?
Yeah, right. You can't do it by yourself, or it's harder. Yeah, so it's grown to this point. I think when I'm looking back, it's pretty crazy because I've done a lot in the past with like nonprofits. And so in a way, it prepared me for this. And now I want to take what I went through, like the bad stuff, and put it into this and turn it into a nonprofit. Yeah, because I think we can alleviate a lot of the problems, or give information. There's a lot of things we can do with this platform.
So for now, people could just go to the YouTube and go to the Instagram.
Yeah, it's on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And
Is it the same on all three platforms?
it is the same. Hope for Stroke Survivors. I think each platform we kind of do different things on it.
Right.
And now I'm starting to get more survivors to be a part of it because I think it can help them. In my situation, it did help me to recover. Because also when you're posting, and I'm sure is different platforms, they teach you to do a lot of different tasks. And I didn't know what I was doing at that time, but I had to figure it out. And so I think just that platform alone, if you check it out, you can find information on stroke. And right now, we're just sharing different things. I'm getting other survivors to help on it. But I think, we're just trying to share as much as we can. And actually right now, May is Stroke Awareness Month, so we're kind of stepping it up a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, recording this in May, I was just going to ask you about that. So how can people get just more educated to it? Just use the tools that are out there now because there's so many?
Yeah, for sure. The tools out there, using Google, you can search different things. I think there's so much information that even I don't know how to access it all because a lot of times I get overwhelmed.
Right.
But yeah, searching online, I think that's a good one. Yeah, definitely Hope for Strokes Survivors. I'm trying to share more information, especially for this month. So I want to kind of tackle like myths and different statistics. I want to share it out there because there's so many different ways to find it. So I want to kind of put it all in one.
What's the one thing you would tell someone going through stroke, surviving right now, recovery? What's one message you would have for them?
That's a good one. Yeah, I think, as far as a stroke, it's easy to focus on all the bad things that are happening. And in a way, for everyone, there's going to be good and bad in your life. But definitely you got to make sure you don't overlook the positive and you just focus on the negative because there's a lot of blessings out there also.
Well done, man.
Yeah.
Got any other words or?
No, that's actually, I guess it, yeah.
Well, thank you for coming through Hard Parking. It's great to see you as always. And we'll try to get the message out there so that other people can see this and take some motivation and inspiration and hope from this. So I want to thank you.
Oh, thank you, Jay. Yeah, it's an honor to be on here. And this is a sick-ass studio. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that was an incredible episode with Phil or Phat, depending on who you are and how long you've known him, obviously. He did say his coworkers know him as Phat. I've known him as Phil. It's interesting for that to be kind of a timestamp. That's what he said. I don't think we talked about that in the episode, but in the opening when we were kind of talking amongst ourselves, he said that when people referred him to Phil, he remembers there was a relationship before the stroke. It's kind of scary that he had no signs or symptoms, and even though they did the exams, they found nothing. It had to have been something. So, that in itself is a little wicked, but what I did is a few years ago, I went in for an exam. I heard about it on the All In podcast, and it's a CT calcium score. And usually they give it to people that are a little older than I am. I think the age that they kind of talk about is like 55 or 60. When I went in and got it, I was probably 45 or 46. And it's kind of it's a low-cost outpatient exam. And so some insurances don't know how to deal with it. But it was like a $250 copay. And I think I even had to pay less. I don't know if they're running a special, but it's a great exam to get because if you have any calcium, and this didn't happen with Phil, but for men, women, go in and get this exam. and it's cheap. And they check your walls for calcium buildup. If you've got any calcium, whether it's 1% or whatever, and they prescribe you medicine and it actually eats away at it, and it could save your life. And, you know, if that goes unchecked, it could be a stroke. It could be something even worse. And so your health is obviously the most important thing. And I think, you know, like I said many times in that conversation with Phil, you know, you never know, right? And when it happens to somebody that I wouldn't say you're close with, but you consider in your friend group, and you see what it does to them, and to hear that story about the woman in the recovery house that just stopped improving, you know, that could have been him. It could be anybody. You know, it's just one of those things that kind of, it freaks you out. It's like Bryce that was on a couple weeks ago, or a few episodes ago, that had the crash on his Ducati. You know, he shouldn't have made it. And like a week after I aired that episode, another local rider here, the same thing happened to her, and she didn't make it. And I elected not to post a specific clip of him talking about how lucky he was, because it was just the wrong time. And, you know, we're going to have Charles Warden back on the show pretty soon, who's going to be in studio. We're going to drink some tequila, and he's doing a lot of bikes now, you know, cleaning of Charles. And I think he said they've lost something crazy, like 8 people in the last month or something crazy like that. And so, long story short, you just never know what the next day holds. And so, you know, for the Bryces of the world and for the Phils of the world, you know, they got to count their blessings, and we have to count our blessings that we're friends with them. So, with that being said, I want to thank Right Honda and Right Toyota, Arcus Foundry, Spark Forge, same company, Auto Cannon, officially licensed Honda and Acura gear. Got to thank my Patreon business supporters, Kuya Automotive out of Winter Garden, Florida, Automotive Specialty Tool out of Owings Mills, Maryland, Big House Small Home Design out of Ashburn, Virginia, and Traverse City, Michigan. The Lucky Break Sports Breakers they're also out of Caledonia, Michigan. I'm going off of memory on this one. And I think that's everybody. I apologize if I missed someone. Shaping Success, Treasure Valley. I lost my script. I'm just going to have to pull it up. Thank my Patreon business. Also want to thank my Patreon supporters, Mark Stoneman, Catherine Cox, Eddie Ramos, Richard Graves, Bomber Jones, Bo Jung, Alice Gamina, Drew Bunkley, and Andre Mullins. If you want to support the show, you can at Patreon Hard Parking Podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, become a member. You can join the page, get early access, which is rare, but it still helps me out. It's like $3 a month. I mean, come on, whatever. If there's something you want to contribute to this episode, you want to leave a comment, you know, make sure you leave a review, but info@hardparking.com. You can leave a comment or review on most podcast platforms. If you're watching this on YouTube, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment. Otherwise, I'll talk to you all next week.
Shut up!